You feel it every second of your life. The future doesn't exist yet. The past is gone. And only the present is real, a thin glowing blade of now, sliding forward through time, converting possibility into fact. It feels so obvious that we build our deepest fears and hopes on it. Because if the future is not yet real, then maybe it can be changed. Maybe it's open. Maybe your choice is genuinely created. But physics has a way of taking what feels obvious and asking one merciless question. Obvious for whom? Obvious in what frame? Because the instant you stop treating time as a private feeling and start treating it as something the universe must define consistently for everyone, everywhere, you run into a result so cold and clean that it feels like it steals the ground from under the word now. The argument begins innocently with something you already accept. Information takes time to travel. Light has a finite speed. If you see a flash, you're seeing a past event delayed by distance. That part is intuitive. But Einstein's special relativity turns that practical delay into a structural fact about reality. It isn't just that you receive information late. It's that there is no universal agreement on what events are happening at the same time as this moment, even in principle, even after you correct for signal travel. That's the relativity of simultaneity, and it's not philosophy. It's geometry enforced by the constancy of the speed of light. Here is the simplest way to let it bite. Imagine two lightning strikes hitting the ends of a train track at equal distances from you while you stand at the midpoint on the platform. You see the flashes at the same time, so in your frame you conclude they happen simultaneously. Now put a friend on a train moving past you. At the instant you pass each other at the midpoint, she is moving toward one flash and away from the other. So the light from the front strike reaches her before the light from the rear strike. Now, the cheap explanation would be, she just sees them at different times because of travel distance. But relativity doesn't allow you to dismiss it that way, because both of you can correct for travel time using your own clocks and rulers, and you still disagree about whether the strikes were simultaneous. And Einstein's answer is not one of you is wrong. His answer is, simultaneity is not absolute. There is no single cosmic slice of the universe that deserves the label now. Your present is one way of cutting spacetime into time slices. Your friend's present, because she's moving, is a different cut, tilted relative to yours. Two observers in relative motion carry different definitions of at the same time, and both are equally valid descriptions of the same physical world. Once you swallow that, the classic picture of time as one universal river collapses, because a universal river requires a universal now, and relativity denies that such a thing exists. Now comes the part that starts to feel like the future already exists. If there is no observer-independent present, what are past and future, really? In relativity, events are points in spacetime, and your motion determines how you label distant events as already happened, happening now, or not yet. That sounds abstract until you realize it produces a chilling consequence. For any event far away that is space-like separated from you, meaning no signal traveling at or below light speed can connect you to it. Right now, different observers will disagree about whether that event is in your past, your present, or your future. And here's the trap. If you say, only the present is real, then you must answer which present. Because two equally valid observers slice reality differently and assign different sets of distant events to now. If reality itself depended on one slice, relativity would be false. So either you invent a hidden preferred frame, which the theory doesn't need and experiments don't reveal, or you accept the simplest reading of what the geometry suggests. All those events which you call past, present, and future are equally part of the four-dimensional structure. Not equally experienced, but equally there in the model. This is the block universe idea. Space-time is not a stage where time flows. It's a four-dimensional object where what you call time is another dimension like space, and your life is a world line laid out within it, a path through the block. The future already exists, in the same sense that the next mile of a road already exists. Even if you haven't driven there yet, you don't create the asphalt by moving forward. You simply occupy different locations along something that is already part of the map. And if that analogy feels too gentle, here's the sharper version. In Newton's world, the universe updates itself moment by moment. In Einstein's world, the universe is more like a complete space-time history. And what changes is not the block, but your location in it. Now, did Feynman reveal this? Not as a single official proclamation, and you should be suspicious of anyone who claims a secret quote. But Feynman did something more valuable. He taught people to follow the consequences of the equations, even when they hurt your intuition. And relativity's consequence is precisely the death of an absolute present. If you take that seriously, the phrase "the future already exists" is not a mystical claim about destiny. It's a statement about what the geometry of spacetime allows. In Minkowski spacetime, your now is not a universal plane. It's a convention tied to your motion. That alone pushes you toward a block-like view, because it makes becoming look like a perspective effect rather than a fundamental feature. And special relativity isn't the end. General relativity deepens the feeling because it turns spacetime into a dynamic geometry shaped by energy and momentum, but it still treats the universe as a four-dimensional spacetime. Solution and object described all at once by equations rather than a three-dimensional world, being continually refreshed by a cosmic clock. This is why many physicists casually talk as if the universe just is, and why the language of the present moment feels more like psychology than like fundamental physics. But now you feel the panic rising, because you can hear the word that people think this implies: fatalism. If the future already exists, is free will an illusion? Are you just watching a film that's already shot? And this is where you have to be careful, because physics is precise and sloppy metaphysics ruins it. The block universe view doesn't say you can know the future. It doesn't say you can change the future by stepping outside time. It doesn't even say your choices are fake. It says something narrower and stranger. The distinction between past exists and future doesn't is not an observer-independent feature of the world in relativity. What exists in the mathematical description is a space-time structure, and your experience of flow is not written into the fundamental equations the way you feel it in your mind. In that view, your decision-making is part of the space-time story. Your deliberations, uncertainties, and actions are real processes along your world line, not external exceptions. From the inside, you still face open options because you don't have access to the full block as information. You live locally, you receive signals at light speed, you compute, you guess, you act. The fact that a completed spacetime description could, in principle, contain the whole history doesn't grant you a God-sees-eye ability to read it from within. So the emotional fear, my choices don't matter, doesn't follow cleanly from the physics. What follows is that now is not fundamental, and time as flow is not present in the equations the way it is present in your experience. And then quantum mechanics enters like a second argument in the same courtroom, because people will try to rescue an open future by saying quantum randomness means the future isn't fixed, maybe. But randomness is not the same as openness in the sense people want. Randomness doesn't give you control. And interpretations differ on whether quantum outcomes are truly indeterminate or whether global evolution is still unitary. The honest stance is that relativity gives you a strong reason to doubt a universal present, while quantum foundations complicate any simple claim about the future is settled. The phrase, "the future already exists," is therefore best understood as a relativistic claim about the structure of spacetime, not a final metaphysical verdict on destiny. Yet even with those caveats, the central shock remains. In everyday life, you feel like reality is generated in real time, but in relativity, the cleanest picture is that reality is a four-dimensional entity, And your sensation of a moving present is a feature of how brains process information, remember the past, and anticipate what comes next. Your brain carries records of earlier states and not later ones. It constructs a narrative. It calls the leading edge now. Physics, meanwhile, draws a diagram like cones, world lines, space-time intervals, and nowhere on that diagram is there a universal glowing line labeled the present. So if you want the Feynman-Style sting, it's this. You can keep insisting that only the present is real, but then you must tell the universe which present you mean. And the universe refuses to choose because different observers carve space-time differently, and experiments back them all. The future already exists, not as a fortune teller, as promise, but as the implication that the world is not a three-dimensional stage updated by a master clock. It is a space-time structure in which what you call future is simply elsewhere along the time dimension, as real in the geometry as distant places are in space. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. When you look at the night sky, you're already looking into the past. When you move, you tilt your slice of simultaneity. When you say, right now across the galaxy, physics asks, right now according to which motion? And the word now, that word you thought was the bedrock of reality, starts to look like a local convenience rather than a universal fact. That's why the idea haunts people, not because it proves fate, but because it suggests that the universe is not built around your experience of time. Your experience is built inside a universe whose deepest description does not privilege a moving present at all.